Good afternoon and welcome to the January 8th City of Coos Bay Design Assistance Team meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. We will start with a roll call. We'll start down at the end.
Ryan Tuss, board member.
Ariane Lyons, board member. Or team member. We're technically not a board.
Team.
Yeah.
Team leader. MJ Kariva, team member.
Register of Historic Places. Coco, would you like to take the floor?
Well, thank you for meeting with me today. My name is Coco Sutton, and I'm a volunteer with the City of Coos Bay Parks. The Mingus Park Community Building Historic WPA Scout Cabin is being presented for consideration to the National Register of Historic Places as a multi-property listing for the Oregon WPA and PWA. We did send to Kelly the cover sheet for the multi-listing properties for Oregon and references to many of the Coos Bay, Coos County properties, because one of the issues that we found out about is when you're nominating under the two criteria, which is criteria A for the significance of the WPA PWA association and the architectural uniqueness, which is criteria C, is making sure that of all the documented WPA PWA projects that were specifically done in Mingus Park, that this project was unique by itself and stands alone under the criteria required for nomination under A. We have been getting a wealth of documentation and photographic information to help support that, and there were some slight errors on the original multi-property listing, and I referred to that on page 77 for anyone, just because as this gets vetted out and formally put into that, instead of just being a footnote, there was information in the body of that document that showed the local architect, which has been known, and it was not on the reference page on the back in the appendices. I did bring information here if anyone had any questions for me, and thank you for State Historic Preservation being online.
We'll open it up to the Design and Assistance Team for any questions about the process or the cabin, community building.
Yes. Is this for the purpose of restoration?
Well, actually, it's a multiple of reasons. Number one is we do have children under the age of 18 actively using this building, as they have for years, under Scouts, as well as the Chinook-Waukoma District of Scouts, BSA, which is now Scouting USA as of January 1. And there is a resolution that the City of Coos Bay signed in 1998 granting scouting youth organizations use of this building through the proper permitting with no cost. And we want to make sure that we can mitigate and repair the building so that that can continue to be used, and as well as getting it on the historic designation. There can be some code issues that would need to be handled differently than if you did not. So that would be part of the reason, but one of them is a concern when I got assigned this under Adopt a Park of infestation of pests and things like that, just mitigation things for young people to be able to use it. And they are using it. We checked out the chimney. It is safe. That work was done correctly. All of that is, they're not in there now, but there was things that were just a collection over decades of storage and things that don't help with the pest management plan. So we wanted to make sure that we're honoring, preserving this building for community use. And so that's part of the reason, as well as being able to repair it and fix it up. You don't necessarily have to have a building like this on the National Register. There's a lot of documentation and information that people want to preserve and keep this building, But if you start going for grants with the city not having the budget ever to keep these types of things, you're always going to run into that issue because it's over 50 years old and the association with the WPA.
So it helps to be on the register? If at some
Absolutely.
point you can get the funds?
Well, not just the funding for that, but because it's with the WPA and it's already being mentioned on the state historic preservation, so it's already been put into that. This would be very helpful moving forward to make sure that we can maintain it for the parks mission, which is for current and future generations to use for recreational enjoyment.
Okay, thank you.
Both Coco and Curry, is it already inventoried as potential? Is it on the inventory list? I'm seeing.
I would have to look that up. I wasn't here for this agenda item, so.
Yeah, yeah, there is, I have a copy of it in a notebook that I brought, so if you looked up the state of Oregon, SHPO, you can
Okay,
get into
I
their
think so.
database. It will show that it was inventoried as eligible.
Okay,
But
so-
it's not on the National
No,
Register.
no, the inventory list, there was a big push, and I was a local contact to give them potential buildings, and I gave them a very long list, and that was one of them. And then they came through both Coos and Douglas County, where I was kind of a point person, like, yes, this wigwam burner you should look at, and this, lighthouse you should look, that type of thing. And I thought for sure that it was identified, there, identification is the first thing, and then inventory is the second. So the
Yeah.
powers that be have already understand that it
Yeah.
exists. We're not coming out of left field with this.
No. The Oregon's historic site record, I have a print from this,
Okay.
and I'm looking for, it's in there under Oregon Historic Site Record.
That helps immensely with.
I was trying to see if there was a number on it or a reference, and I don't
Meaning
see.
it did not fall off the list, because sometimes structures do, after a certain amount of time, whether the structure has deteriorated or destroyed by natural causes or something, it's no longer inventoried, but if it's inventoried, that's a good sign. So,
And I think a good point to reference is a lot of the evaluation and the repairs and things like that. A lot of this has started because the building was struck by a tree that caused some substantial damage. And so that helped kind of spur forward Coco really spearheading this Adopt a Park program with different projects, with her main focus being the Scout Cabin. So there are a lot of irons in the fire, and I don't know, we can talk about some of the grants that we've already gone after, but some of the big main pieces is some foundation repair. But Coco's big focus has been making sure that it is safe and functional for the kids to continue to use and for the community to use
It's-
while we're going after additional grants.
We called it the stability and safety, and trees were the #1 issue next to vandalism, because they just didn't mitigate early enough. And every time you have something take out a piece of structure, unfortunately, that adds another 50, 60,000
Yeah.
to fixing things, so.
Yeah, so as I was walking down here today, I pulled out my phone and I tried to find the cabin on my map, and it's not on the map. It's not on Google Maps. Is there any effort to get it onto these platforms so that more people can find this?
I know that the city, if you go to the City of Coos Bay website and you look under parks, they did add, so you go to City of Coos Bay, it's not on the government tab, it's the next one over, and you click on parks, it shows that building, and then it links you to the permit to get it. It has the address off of 850 West Parkway. There are some other, if you Googled Mingus Park Community Building or Scout Cabin, there's different individuals that have, but that's a city decision. So other than being on the city website, I don't have any information on that.
We'll just add that to the parks, next parks.
Okay.
And while we were chatting, Chelsea did look it up, and it is on the inventory
Okay,
list.
thank you.
And that was Google Maps you used.
Yeah.
Do you have any other items?
I don't think car ever drove up West Park. The Google car ever went up there. I know the Bing car came around and went to a lot of different places that the Google car didn't go to, so. Tried, yeah.
I think it's worth noting that this has been an excruciatingly long, detailed process, so I would like to thank Coco for
Oh, excellent job.
dealing with this, because just finding all the information has been tedious. Yes,
It's all here.
yeah.
Starting in 1912, which is the history of scouting, and I have to say that Caitlin Abrams at the State Historic Preservation Office was very, very supportive and helpful in going through this process. And we keep getting more information from the advertising we've been doing since 2023 with Adopt a Park in the little South Coast shopper that runs from, Douglas Lane, in getting information and pictures so that we can own those photographs in our archive to help with this. So I did bring some photographs that we found of the back, because there was also an issue when we went through the Parks Master Plan for Mingus Park about the difference between maps that currently show Mingus Lake and Mingus Pond, and now they're all Mingus Pond. And we did get the documentation on that in 1959 when the city undid a lot of the WPA work that was done by the Weber Plan in Lower Mingus Park. So 1 minute here. This is the only photograph that we know of that shows the back, which was the money shot of that cabin with the outdoor fireplace open looking at the lake. All the hillside would have been denuded, so there wasn't a lot of trees that you see now on those ravines because of all the work that was done to get roadways put in rocks and help with all the flooding and the springs that were down there. So if anybody else would like to see this, it's over here. We're looking for more documentation on that. And this is, you know how you get the picture of the Loch Ness Monster and it says, here?
Oh, wow.
That's, okay. So what I'm passing around now is a photograph courtesy of the Coos History Museum, and on the back is a bridge that's at Lower Mingus. Up in the very top, you'll see a shadow, right there. And this shows how high up above that other project in the park this structure was sitting.
That was the original bridge.
On the back,
No,
that's
in the foreground.
in the foreground, that's one that was from the Weber, and we still have the blueprints in the city for that project.
Then the second bridge was all wooden and log before the Choshi Bridge came in.
Right.
And upstream from the first wooden bridge was a second wooden bridge, and they were all logs.
Yeah, and there's one on the back of that picture there.
And it's-
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
second bridge up.
So there's been a lot of work done in that area since 1920, I think 1914 was the first Perham Park. And that's I hate to say this, but there were a lot of people that came into the West Coast in the early 20th century wanting to sell you land that probably wasn't
It was
as,
marshland.
as,
It was-
right, yes. So, and everyone has a right to make a living, however. This says 50% or 4%, which, don't read this if you are content to make 4% on your investment, for it will not interest you. But if you're looking for a sight and sound investment, when you met you from 25 to 50% within 1 year from date, talk with Reed about Perham Park, and it goes on. This is from October 26, 1912. So it was the bottom land there that had not, and they were trying to make a gated community. There was always reservoirs there in that area and duck ponds that people had. So anytime you see a park or a school or college and it happens to be next to a cemetery or bottomland, there's probably a reason, so.
Yeah, and it is to note that the reason why you have a lot of this stuff is because it was through the tax foreclosure in the 20s, so.
So when Mingus Lake or Pond was all still part of the bay, the water coming down off of basically about where Ocean Boulevard coming down to Park Street, Alder and Birch and Cedar, those springs never went dry in the summertime. So if you had any kind of water and you went dry by July or August, you'd paddle up to basically where Alder Street, and that's why the water that's constantly coming off of there is all year round. And that was because our house was built on top of one of those springs. We found that out in the 1960s when our house was going like this, and the old-time neighbor said, well, we told them not to build a house
Yep.
there because there's springs. Okay.
And there was a woman that wanted to donate land to the city earlier, and she had duck ponds and stuff, and they said, no, thank you. So there's, that just happens. And then part of the association of use continually was the Scouts, the Boy Scouts of America, which this building was built through an effort to utilize the Council of Boy Scouts of America, where 1 in 4 people at the period of significance we're talking about and during the Depression were associated with the Boy Scouts of America. And that organization came to the United States in 1912 from the founders in England in 1910. And here's an article from February of 1922 on the 12th anniversary of Boy Scouts of America. And people in Coos County that were driving or paddling children from this area into Coquille to camp along the river. They didn't have structures to be in. And then in 1912, the Boy Scouts for Marshfield article was organizing patrols, including what was called the Lone Scout program, where if you lived out on a farm or in rural areas, which much of the county was, you could participate by mail. And then by 1920s, on the anniversary of getting more involved with Scouts, they added those young men into local scouting groups. And we know from Coos history, as with Oregon history, there was a lot of people that lived in logging camps. And you had schools all over and lots of children. So I think it's really great that we can keep and encourage people that don't have the ability and the money to go enjoy all the parks in Oregon. They can't drive somewhere. And being able to bicycle, walk, or drive a very short distance from where you live and get into this same Sylvan setting in this same building, even with all the windows boarded up, the reaction that children have or adults when they went in there. So thank you for your consideration of this project. Are there any more questions? Okay, thank you, Carrie.
And to note that if the group is available, we can tour the building after this.
Yes, if there's anyone that wants to after the meeting today, just let me know. I'll wait here and we can tour, because we've been having open houses since October of 2023, and a lot of people didn't realize that was part of Mingus Park, or that the city even owned it, or who owned it, or what it was. So that's kind of sad, but there are a lot of people besides the Scouts that still use it, and we'd like to see it get into the use that it was intended for more, because there's a lot of people that don't have the ability to go outside of their community. We don't have the buses that we even had 50 years ago to take people into other state or federal parklands for that experience.
Coco, I see that you are on, or we are on the agenda at 1 p.m. on February 21st. Will you be up there in
Yes.
person presenting it? Are you allotted a certain amount of time? Because it looks like you've got 6 properties they're reviewing.
Yeah, generally, I believe, and Carrie can correct me, but our person, Caitlin Abrams, will go over some stuff with us. Generally, the panel gets the information from our State Historic Preservation representative, which you can correct me, Carrie, but I think it would be Caitlin Abrams, because she has worked with us. And then if there's any questions that need to be clarified, I'll be taking all this information with me, so that if that question comes up, we can make sure that it gets addressed.
It's a good slate of buildings. I've been in 3 of them, the Owyhee Grocery and the Porterford City Hall. I know
Yep.
that. So
Yep.
you're in good company. Good luck with that, Curry.
Thank you.
So before we wrap this one up, page 9 of the agenda has a list that the DAT would need to go through and provide comment on whether or not there were any concerns or if the nomination was okay. So it has integrity, description, significance of context, facts and sources, technical and supporting materials. So I don't know if you guys can find that page, and staff would like to just go through that and get your comments on that, and then at the end, Marianne, we would need you to sign the form as
Okay.
George's secretary.
Here's the blueprints.
Oh, yeah. Do we have paper copy of page 9? I thought I had it. I was.
If anybody wants to put these, which documents.
It's
That's
not
it?
coming
Yeah.
up for me.
Is that on this one right here?
Yeah, so here, if you
Oh,
go here,
okay.
and
Got it down here.
Here.
Got it.
then go to
I do
page
have-
9.
I have one paper.
Okay, then we're gonna leave you with the
Show me
paper.
good there.
All right. I'll just read it aloud, and let's see. And so we're indicating that the proposal is okay in that area, or that we have concerns, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to read them aloud, and then we can discuss each item. So the first item is integrity, major alterations, additions, new materials, altered setting, moved, et cetera. Do we have any concerns about the document as submitted?
No concerns.
No concerns?
No.
Just do general consensus, okay. Description, is the property adequately described? Have a contributing and non-contributing features been clearly identified?
Yes, so I have no concerns on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Significance and context, has the appropriate criterion been used? Has it been justified? Is the context sufficient in breadth and depth to support the claims of significance? Is the narrative history complete and the appropriate detail? Yes.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to
Definitely.
provide influence here, but
And
yes.
beyond- and beyond.
I mean,
And
this is the
beyond, yeah.
first time ever in our recorded history that we actually have history collected for this building, so. Facts and sources, are the appropriate and best sources used? Are key dates, facts accurate?
Coco's doing a
To
great
our
job
knowledge,
of
yes.
vetting that out, even with the latest information you've gotten, so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd say yes, no concerns.
Okay. In technical, typos, grammars, organization, and flow of the narrative. You know, it's pretty concise, so. Supporting materials, adequate photos, maps, drawings, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen stuff in this process that I've never seen before, so I think that's absolutely amazing. And is it the opinion of the commission that the property meets the National Register criteria?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I will need a motion officially for that, and then I can sign as we've indicated.
I so move.
Okay, we have a first from Judith,
I'll second.
a second. We have first and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. We will move forward. Yep, so I'll fill that out. I'll sign up for
So
it.
she gets the paper copy.
Okay. Perfect. Coco, thank you so much for, I think she's our next agenda item. So, and then, does anyone want to view the cabin when we're done here? Yep, okay, so Coco, if you'll stay around, then we'll travel up there. All right, we're moving on down to item number 5, the CLG presentation training.
Well, hi, everybody. That was fun to have converge with my visit with you all. And yeah, congratulations on that. Thank you for taking the time to do part of your role as a certified local government and providing your perspective on that nomination. That's great. So again, I'm Curry Gill. I am here today representing the State Historic Preservation Office, which is based in Salem, Oregon. What we're gonna do today is just very informal. I just wanna share with you what the Certified Local Government Program is, how it's set in the world with the State Historic Preservation Office, how we view the work of the CLGs, how we can support CLGs, and the possibilities for work that you can do under this program for your community. So at any time, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. If you could also say something, because sometimes when people like move to adjust, I can't tell if it's a raising hand or because you're little from my view. So say something or wave to the chair and have the chair interrupt me in case I am not seeing your raised hands. So if that sounds good, I'm going to jump in with the general description of the program and what it is, and then we'll go from there. All right, so the Certified Local Government Program, I would love to change the name of it because it's not a very exciting name, but it is part of the National Park Service, and it was established with the National Historic Preservation Act. And so the National Park Service has authority over that act, and the federal programs are related to historic preservation. So those include the National Register, which you just participated in that process. A big one that people often hear about is the Section 106 compliance program. That's a program that if there's any federal nexus for a project like grant funding, or it's on federal land, or there's licensing, so FCC licensing of cell towers can trigger design review to evaluate if that project is having an impact on a historic property, if that impact is a negative impact, and then what to do if it is, if they can avoid that impact or do something to make up for that negative impact if it can't be avoided. We also have a survey and inventory program. So at the beginning of when you were talking about the cabin earlier, it was mentioned that there was a lot of work around the state done to collect lists of historic properties and communities all over the state. The state of Oregon has an inventory, a list of those communities. The state of Oregon does not have a designation, but it has that inventory. So we try to keep track of historic properties that are out there in the state. And then the other piece of the puzzle is the Certified Local Government Program, and it's one of our favorite pieces because it is how we engage with local folks to do preservation work. So this program is a federal government program. The federal government works with the state offices to enact it at the state level because they can't, sitting in Washington, D.C., really know what's significant in Oregon, they can look at dates, right? But they can't really understand the culture in Oregon without being here and having this stuff run on the ground. Similarly, we at the State Historic Preservation Office cannot sit in Salem and understand the community of Coos Bay and what's going on there. We need local folks to really be the ones to document what's significant and to engage in the community that they understand, to promote those historic places and work to preserve them. So we are big believers in Oregon in this program. Every state has a CLG program. We're required to have a CLG program. And a portion of our funds that we get to manage the State Historic Preservation Office has to go to the certified local governments. Our requirement is 10% of our funds, but we do 25% of our funds to go out to these communities. So certified local governments have to meet basic requirements to participate. And again, in Oregon, we really like this program, so we did not put a lot of additional requirements on the program. We have the base federal requirements, and then we did one change to that. So you have to have a commission, you have to have a way to document your historic places, you have to comment on National Register nominations that happen in your area. So well done, you just did part of your job. If you have protections, then that needs to be in your code. So you need to have an ordinance that provides a way to do local designation and then explains whatever that treatment of those historic properties is going to be. Those are the big high level things. And then if you, the thing that we added is that in the federal rules, that commission has to meet at least twice a year. We made it 4 times a year because you can't really do very much only meeting twice a year. So, so that's the only change that we made from the federal level to the state level. So it's our job to work with the CLGs to make sure that they maintain these requirements. We meet every 4 years. So I got to meet with Kelly and Chelsea during summer. I was going to try to put a time to it, and I can't even remember, to do that check-in and see how it's going in Coos Bay and see how we can help. So we have 56 CLGs in the state. They range from the size of Weston in northeastern Oregon to Portland. They are all over the state, and it's our job to help support you all in doing this work. So we can provide advice, we can provide training. We offer an annual workshop in the fall for staff and commissioners to attend. We provide tools and guidance for doing your work, examples from other communities, and you're a high priority for us. So when you reach out as the City of Coos Bay, as a CLG, we all know, everyone in SHPO knows that we're here to help support you. So you may work with our survey coordinator at some point. Coco worked with our National Register coordinator. So you have the reach of the whole office. So it's not just me. I'm the one coordinating the CLG program. But for example, one of the things that we talked about in our check-in, that some orientation might be desirable in regard to survey or to National Register nominations or tax credit programs. And so different people from our office would provide those orientations to you. That's the big picture of the program. Do you have any questions or thoughts at this point? Or Kelly, also, if there's something you wanted me to talk about that I missed, please also let me know.
There was nothing on my end.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go in a little bit to how the funding works. Coos Bay has a really good track record of using the funding, and lately has been using it as pass-through grants for historic properties in the city. And the last 2 years, it's been to support the rehabilitation work at Marshfield Cemetery, which is having a really big impact. So that's great. Communities can apply every other year for the grant funding. It has to support historic preservation, so it is limited in some ways on what you can spend the funds on. It's pretty broad, and I can usually help make things happen, but it has to be about the places, not just general history and not individuals unless they're linked to a place. So the place-basedness of the project is the real critical thing. But it can be to document those places, so doing survey work. It could be to encourage people to do nominations and hire folks to do nominations. It can be about the treatment of those properties, so providing preservation plans or stability plans or disaster preparedness kinds of plans for individual properties or for groups. You have a Main Street program and an amazing downtown, so we have seen CLGs partner with folks in those areas they'll hire someone to do facade design work for properties that have had their facades altered so much that they don't look historic anymore. And then in Cottage Grove, they did that, and then they created a panel that had the historic photo, the current photo, and the drawing, and they had that up in the library during Preservation Month, and then they gave it to the property owners. And then the property owners who were interested, they helped them apply for our Diamonds in the Rough grant, which is a facade restoration grant in our office. So it really encouraged two of the 8 property owners did that and did the rehab work on their facades. So that was a really cool project. You can offer training and other advice or bring people to the community to talk about the value of these historic places and how that character, makes your community different from your neighboring communities, or your part of the coast different from the rest of the coast. So there's a lot you can do with the grant funding, and I think you're in the middle of a grant cycle right now, so now's a really great time to explore how you might want to move preservation work forward in your community. You all just got the All-Star designation as well, so there's some possibility with that designation. So every other year, you have access as a CLG to this funding. It's usually in the range of $10,000 to $15,000, and it's non-competitive. So every other year, you will have that until the federal government doesn't give us that. It has been very consistent, so I am still feeling like it's going to remain relatively consistent, but we will see. So what's cool about that is that that funding is going to be available, so you can sort of plan ahead for projects that may take 4 or 6 years. For example, City of Dallas was interested in doing a downtown historic district nomination. And so in their first grant cycle about this project, they did the survey work and did some community engagement. The second round of the grant, they did all public engagement because they wanted to make sure that people were on board before they started to move forward with the district. And then in the third round, they funded a consultant to help do the writing of the nomination and the whole nomination process for the district. And now they have a downtown historic district. So it's kind of nice to know that it's not a competitive grant. Portland gets the same amount as you get, and you know that you get it, so you can kind of plan for some really powerful preservation projects in your community. Any grant-related questions?
Yes, I wasn't clear. Are these matched funds or just 100% grant?
So for your community, based on your population, a match is required. Usually, especially communities that have staff that are supporting the board or commission, we just use your time doing this regular work, staff time and volunteer time, as that match, and that usually covers a fair chunk, or the staff time managing the grant project. It can also be matched with other funding sources if you have them, or apply for a different grant to support it as well. So it does require a match, but most of the time we can pull off using staff and volunteer time as the match.
Thank you.
Any other grant-related questions? All right. So one of the roles, and I mentioned a couple of examples of projects that organizations have done with their grant funding, but one of the role of this body in being in supporting the city being a certified local government is to really promote the value of those historic places and engage the community with that and encourage them to support the preservation of those places. So we have seen communities do all kinds of projects in that regard. Many will do activities during May, which is Historic Preservation Month, and they might do walking tours or virtual walking tours, or again, have presenters come talk about the value of these historic places, or even do some social media campaigns where they have pictures, or they manage photo contests where people submit photos of the historic places and they're posted either online or in the city hall or in the library. Some make calendars out of them. They also do scavenger hunts. That's one of my favorite, where they have close-up pictures of historic properties and they try to get people to figure out which property it is. For a while, if I remember correctly, this was a few years ago, but I feel like Coos Bay did have a table at the farmer's market, at least periodically.
Yeah, but we did a table at the farmer's market, and then we did a library, the library held an event, and we did that as well. I think we did three events in general, but we're going back, I don't know, right when we got the CLG designation, so that was an eternity ago.
It's been a while, but there are definitely some different variety of outreach things that happen there. So I guess I would, that stuff is all fun to do. It does take a chunk of time. It takes time to plan those and show up for them. You all wear multiple hats, but also you have a lot of partners. And now with the All-Star designation, I think that there's maybe the opportunity for some more communication. So it could be that you all have conversations with that All-Star group when they meet and talk about this source of funding and where there's overlap of need, where you might be able to do a more collaborative thing where maybe you're not taking on all the work, but you're bringing something else to the table with the grant program that helps support the purpose of your role as a CLG. So I think this is an opportune time to be thinking about what you want to do for next steps. The pass-through grants were really great, and they ended up showing good examples for sure of preservation work. But I think now might be a good time to explore how you might want to move forward with that promotion effort. And you have a bunch of great staff, and yeah, it's like this super cool moment right now. So that's the big picture. We do have some opportunity to provide more detailed information. If you want more details about promotional stuff, if you want to talk about preservation planning, if you want to talk about the benefits of National Register or how to treat historic properties, we could have our restoration specialist talk with you. If you want to have a joint meeting with your Main Street Board and learn more about the federal tax credit program, that could be a thing that we provide. So that's what we were kicking around when we did our check-in, was a little bit more fodder for you all to learn stuff and see if any of that inspires kind of your next steps. But you don't have to give thoughts for that now, but just think about that and you all can determine if that seems appropriate and what topics, and staff can get back and forth with me about those things.
Thank you so much. When we first took on the CLG and were certified, one of our goals, and then it went to the wayside, was some staff changes and then life and all kinds of things. But one thing we had discussed doing is doing something similar to a town that I didn't write fast enough, where we took photos of what they look like now, and then historic photos of what they look like, and then a rendering of if they did do a facade grant, what it possibly could do. And we were going to do that, then have a presentation, and then have the boards available so that the buildings could put them in their windows, or have tours and things like that. We used to have a historic walking tour that Andy did every year, and we were going to dovetail it with that, and the history of the building, because people love history, the facade, what it looked like. We were going to do the big boards for each of those, but life happened. We didn't get there. And so, but that's something that would be nice to revisit again. At one time, I think Andy did it, might have been Hillary. I think it might have been Hillary, but I think Andy did one side of the street, Hillary did the other. But we had 101 southbound, both sides of the street, multiple blocks of the facades, and potentially what the facades could look like if they were historically restored. And one idea that we had talked about was getting the renderings, moving forward with that, doing the posters, but then also doing the long facades again, and selling those as postcards as a fundraiser for helping support our facade grant program. It is my understanding, unfortunately, that I believe our facade grant program for the downtown core isn't available for this financial segment, but that could be an encouragement to move forward and restore some of our facade grant programs that we have for our downtown core. There's also the mural project that is being discussed for the downtown core, and then dovetailing in some historic repair work for some of the buildings down there. So there's a lot of really cool things. There's a lot of cool things that we started over the last 20 years, but because of staff changes, life, COVID really interrupted a lot of us. I mean, I hate to keep blaming COVID, but really it messed everything up. That we just haven't gotten back to that. So I think there's some of those ideas that would be really awesome to revisit, because we really do embrace the history of our town, and it would be nice to see some of these buildings kind of come back to life. And I think sometimes what it takes is people to be able to see it, and maybe in having a rendering of it is always a great way for people to be like, oh, there we go, that's what it could look like. So just some thoughts on what we were going to do. It didn't quite get there, but maybe we could do in the future. Any other additional comments for our questions for Curie while she's here with us today? We appreciate you coming in, or zooming in. So.
Thanks for having me and for your work.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Hearing none, I think we will move on down to design assistance team comment. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to share in general for today, not related to an agenda item? No, you're good. Oh, good. Good. Awesome. I am enjoying actually meeting. This is great. Meeting in person is awesome. So thank you, Kelly, for always poking us and reminding us.
Anybody get any reports of storm damage to any structure or store or anything we should be worried about? And it could be any kind of storm from November 18th on.
No.
And then the other thing was the tsunami warning that some people really adhered to, and other people didn't take seriously. And I know the city's addressing that, but just hoping that, being head of the Marshfield Sun Association, I called my coworker or co-volunteer who lives way up the river, and I said, you know what, if this is real, we're just gonna have to pick up the pieces when it's done. I'm not rushing to the place. And thank God it wasn't real, but that's immediately went through my mind is, what was I responsible for besides getting myself up a hill, whatever. And we have a little plan, which is, when the water's gone, we'll go look at it, but it got us thinking about our little organization, and then us as a group that helps refer and guide our community members who are in charge of buildings. Thank God it didn't happen.
And I think a lot of that goes back to is where is a lot of this stored? So, you know, in her quest to find data on the scout cabin, and people are literally digging stuff out of attics and basements. And so I think that that's part of the issue is we have a lot of great historical knowledge in our community. It's just spread out in everyone's homes. And how do we kind of rein and bring in some of that data? So that's a general question for the city. Put that on the budget for 2026.
Well, and I was kind of going down a different path, because I know with our all-star designation, we are working on a disaster preparedness plan for historic structures, so that is something that is in the works too.
Nice. Okay. All right.
Our building is full of very heavy things that were sunk, but right now Pacific Palisades is burning up, and I thought, oh gosh, how close to either Getty Museum are they getting to? And just, it happens, like I said, the November 18th one, that first storm, and then Christmas night storm, and hearing that trees had gone through homes, and somebody posted that our particular construction company is the only people answering the phone, so guess who worked from 26 until today. I'm still going out and finding people's houses, and then I've just gotten thinking about, again, let's get down that path of disaster preparedness. So I immediately know my phone tree, I immediately know who's gonna be looking at Empire, who's gonna be looking at the waterfront, who's gonna be looking at, you know, City Hall, all of that. Yes. Having watched a tsunami from a lighthouse one time, I definitely know that if you don't know what to do in those first 5 to 10 minutes, you know, is it covered, can we do anything, or we just gotta wait till the elements are over? Getting to that stage would be really a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thanks a lot. Kelly, any closing comments?
I just have a reminder for the required Oregon Public Meeting training that everybody needs to take.
I only have to do that once, right? Like I don't
Yes.
have to do it for every committee I'm on.
Everyone.
I have a format question on that. Is it an online training where you're training yourself, or is it a Zoom meeting type training where they need to know who's all?
I only looked it up that it's a whole 90 minutes,
Yes.
which is, that was my concern.
The
was
reason
how
why
long
is
it is.
the November 18th power outage zapped my camera on my computer.
Oh.
So if it's gotta be one of those, I gotta go find somebody who's got a computer with a camera. Otherwise, do you know the format of the type of training?
I'm not 100% sure. I can go back at Christine and,
Christine might be.
yeah, she would have all that information, but I can look into it too and send out another email.
Yeah. Yeah, I only clicked far enough to see how long it was, and I was like, oh, I don't have time for that today, so.
Do you know?
My assumption is it's just kind of like a you sit and watch and learn, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. And then you probably have to do an affidavit that says you watched it or something.
Yeah, okay, well then that doesn't require a camera or mine, so
Mhm.
doing it.
Yeah. And we should all do it because open meeting laws and transparency is very important, which I do agree is very important.
Funny, I got the email for that, and then I'm on the budget committee for the airport, and their email came through right after yours. Okay, I'm getting it. Most times.
We'll make sure you do it.
Oh, yeah.
I did notice that they do cap the number of participants per session,
Oh,
so that might imply that it is Zoom.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I got
Yeah.
thinking, okay.
Yeah, I got confused because then we got the email and then I got like invited to a bunch of classes and then those were all deleted, then added and deleted. And then I tried to search my email this morning for it and I couldn't find it and I got frustrated because, you know, thank you AI, you've now made it impossible to find anything in my email from yesterday. 6 months ago, yeah, but yesterday, nothing. So it's technology. So, well, I appreciate everyone coming in today. I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and a reminder that if you would like to take a look at the Scout Cabin, the community building, please join us. We'll be up there shortly. So, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.